I hate to say it, but Jake Paul did it better than Mike Tyson. He did it better than Muhammad Ali. He did it better than Floyd Mayweather. Hey, it's Ramsey Dewey over here in Shanghai, China. You may be wondering, what the heck am I talking about? But let's get into it. Back in the 1980s, Mike Tyson would pay boxers not nearly as good as him, but he would pay them $1,000 around back in early 1980s money. That's like what? $6,000 to $10,000 today, depending on inflation. And he'd pay them $1,000 a round to get in the ring and spar with him, to basically be live punching bags. And Tyson did this. Ali did this. I don't know how much Ali paid his sparring partners. Floyd Mayweather did this as well. It's something fairly common amongst great boxers who can afford it to pay handsomely for sparring partners to come in to take a beating, to be that live meat bag, so that they can condition themselves to hit a live human being, to hurt a live human being, to hone that killer instinct with a fairly low risk of getting injured themselves. And Jake Paul, what has he done? So far, he has had 3 fights where he has brought in guys that his team has determined you can not only beat these guys, but you can do it with a fairly low risk of getting hurt, and you will look very good by comparison. And this thing that Tyson has done, that Mayweather has done, that Ali has done, that so many of the greats in boxing have done and paid for, Jake Paul just made millions of dollars doing the same thing in front of a crowd. Is boxing dead, guys? I mean, is real boxing dead? In the same way that video killed the radio star, is celebrity killing the combat sports athlete? Let's be honest. Let's be frank. Somebody asked me, what do you think of Jake Paul's boxing? I'll tell you when I've seen him box. I will tell you when I have seen him box. We have seen him punch a few guys who were not boxers. We have seen him beat up a couple of guys who were not boxers. We have not seen him box. We have not seen him compete. I don't know if we will see this, but as I often say, as I often tell amateur fighters who come to me, hey Ramsey, I'm struggling with pre-fight nerves and all this stuff, I tell them, look man, your first 10 fights are going to suck. You get those out of the way, you're going to be a different fighter. You're going to be a different man. You're going to be a different human. You will handle the stress and the incidentals and the performance anxiety very differently once you expose yourself to it 10 times or so. And generally, most people in that situation, what do? They do that for free, or they pay for the opportunity to put themselves in front of the crowd and get the experience, and experience all the incidentals you cannot train for in the gym that only come with competition. And they pay through the nose, often with their noses, for it. And it costs them. It costs them their health, their money, their time, their minds. Yeah, man, it costs. And Jake Paul is doing essentially that same thing. He is acclimating himself to the ring, acclimating himself to these big performances in front of the world, with the whole song and dance, the lights, the cameras, the ring girls, the crowd, the millions of dollars. And do I have to re-emphasize that again? The millions of dollars. He's not paying for it. He's being paid for it, man. Part of me is feeling like, well, this is a shame because there are so many better fighters out there being overshadowed and overlooked. How many of you knew about Frank Mir competing on the same card? Frank Mir and Steven, starts with a C, man, blanking on his name. Boxer. Okay, former boxing champ in one organization. Man, I'm going to have to look this up. Sorry, Steve, I did not follow your career. Frank Mir, I am more familiar with, two-time UFC heavyweight champion, going up against a fairly decorated professional boxer, former champ with a pretty good record, fought some good fighters. And Frank Mir goes out there with I think it was a 60-pound weight advantage. Big size difference between these two. Steve was a little taller. A little. On paper, it says they're both 6'1", which is my height, but man, Steve at the weigh-in seemed to stand an inch or two taller and definitely had a much longer reach. But that was a good fight. I don't know if you saw it, but it was a good fight. I don't know why nobody talked about that one before. Well, I do know why. Because the Paul Askren fight overshadowed it. Everybody was so busy making predictions about that one. Everybody was so busy talking about that one that nobody talked about the much more compelling fight, what turned out to be a much more compelling fight. I mean, man, if you spun that story the right way, former UFC heavyweight champion, a guy who actually does know a couple things about boxing against a decorated veteran boxer, former champion, etc. And it went the distance. And Frank ended up losing the decision, but it was a pretty decent fight. I mean, neither of those men have any reason to hang their heads low. It was a great fight. It was a compelling performance. Both men showed a lot of heart. You had the smaller, more technical guy against the larger, stronger guy. And yeah, it was one of those David beats Goliath type of situations. David versus Goliath, it's not talking about a miracle, man. David brought a ranged weapon to a melee fight. Make no mistake about that. And that's basically what we saw. We saw a more skilled technician with more experience in the sport of boxing get the win over a larger, stronger man with less experience in the sport of boxing, but definitely no stranger to fisticuffs. So, man, that's the plot of a lot of great boxing movies right there. Give or take a couple of details. That could have been spun so many different ways to sell that fight, but I'm just shocked that nobody even tried. Nobody even tried to sell that fight. Well, I don't get it. I do not get it. So both of these men, Frank Mir and Stephen C., sorry, I apologize. I do not remember his name. Oh, Cunningham, Stephen Cunningham. There we go. I had to look that one up. Both of these men very decorated in their sport. Both of these men having earned the respect of the fans, of the fight community in both respective sports, boxing and mixed martial arts. And nobody cared. Nobody cared because the YouTuber and the wrestler turned MMA fighter were going at it and making a spectacle about it. What does that teach us? Teaches us life. Life is not fair, is it? Is it? I mean, look at the most popular YouTube martial arts people. And then look at the best YouTube martial arts fighters. Like the ones with the most skill versus the ones with the most subscribers. And there is a big difference. I've said this before, I'll say it again. The top 5 YouTube martial arts people, martial arts YouTubers, people with over 1 million subscribers, only one of them has actually been in a fight. Only one of them. I mean, think about that. Think about that. What does that tell us? That tells us people don't care. They think they do. They think they want to go out there and see a good, compelling fight. Was Jake Paul versus Ben Askren a good fight? No, we saw it. It was lopsided. It was weird. It was pretty amateur. Meh. I still don't know how good of a boxer Jake Paul is. I don't know. Ben Askren made some mistakes. He looked like a first-time boxer because he was a first-time boxer. Okay. Yeah, we didn't learn much. We didn't see much. Were we entertained much? We were entertained by the pre-fight spectacle and all that. Why? Because we love stories. We don't communicate with information. We don't communicate with with I hit you, you hit me, we communicate with stories. I hit you because of this reason. The reasons are the stories, the narratives are the reasons. Man, think about that. But Jake Paul, he is ushering in this fascinating new era. Or is it new? I don't know. I think it's new. This new era of celebrity boxing. Back in, was it the 90s, early 2000s? I don't remember. They had a TV show called Celebrity Boxing where they would get these kind of washed up has-been celebrities to box with each other. They got that dude who played Screech on Saved by the Bell, Dustin Diamond, to box against, who was he? Another guy who played another nerdy character on another high school TV show, that dude from Welcome Back, Kotter, and it was not a good fight. I mean, none of these were good fights. I think they got Tonya Harding in there at one point. I think she was one of the better boxers because, man, she beefed up since her era of figure skating and got mean, but none of them were good fights. But it was a highly viewed show because of the spectacle and the story, and people related to these characters, if you will. They wanted... I mean, nobody knew who Dustin Diamond was back then. They knew who Screech from Saved by the Bell was, the nerdy smart kid. Right? What? The nerdy smart wimpy kid is going to fight? Oh, this is going to be good. We want to see this. It's subverting my expectations. In much the same way that Jake Paul, the YouTube... Was he a comedian? I don't even know what he was famous for. I guess he made some sort of YouTube entertainment channel. Essentially, people saw this. The entertainer is going to fight? No way. That subverts my expectations. That gives me certain concerns for his safety and well-being because I didn't know he could do that. He's stepping outside of not just his comfort zone, but my comfort zone also, because we like to pigeonhole people and put people in little boxes. Man, do you remember when Jim Carrey, famous comedic actor, made that movie The Majestic? It was billed as a serious drama, which it was. And Jim Carrey wasn't funny in that movie, and people were like, what? We want Jim Carrey to be funny. It's not cool if he's not funny. And the movie was critically panned, not because it was a bad movie, not because it was a bad drama, but because Jim Carrey wasn't funny. And this happens all the time with comedic actors. Bill Murray, he made a film version of the book The Razor's Edge, which is a fascinating book. It is an epic drama, an epic sweeping drama, and fascinating story for a lot of reasons. And it's a fascinating movie, and it's a very interesting performance by Bill Murray, but it's not funny. And that movie came out at the height of his career, where everybody was expecting everything Bill Murray put out to be comedic gold, to be just a rollicking good time at the cinema. And then The Razor's Edge comes out and people are like, no, Bill Murray, stay in your lane, get in your box, be pigeonholed, stop trying to be serious. And it subverted people's expectations. And a entertainer going out there and boxing subverts our expectations in a similar way, but an importantly opposite way. Now, if Jake Paul said, hey guys, I'm going to do Hamlet. I'm going to start being a Shakespearean actor, a very serious one, by the way, people would be like, whatever, keep doing your funny YouTube thing or what. Again, I don't know if he's a comedian. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm assuming he made funny, entertaining YouTube videos that the general public enjoyed watching, because all I know about him is he had a popular YouTube channel. But yeah, man, if you have a popular entertainer turned fighter, yes, that definitely subverts expectations, and the eyeballs turn on you, and the world starts watching. Which is the polar opposite of the funny guy turning serious. Nobody likes that. Nobody likes the comedian waxing serious, unless it's seriously funny. But Jake Paul did it better than Mike Tyson. Did it better than Mayweather. Did it better than Ali. Because he got paid for this experience. And he could keep doing this. He could get some other dude One of these guys, Tyson, would have paid $1,000 a round to get in the ring with him so that Tyson could punch him, touch him up a bit, get some experience. Jake Paul could keep doing this, keep getting this type of guy in there, and make millions every time until we get sick of it. And when we get sick of it, he's going to move on to that next thing. I don't know what that's going to be. Maybe he's going to become an investment tycoon. I don't know. Put all those millions of dollars to work somehow, some way. He's a young man, man. He's got time to figure these things out. So, man, fighters, what are you going to do about this? What are you going to do about this? Fighters fight. And too often we accept a raw deal. We accept raw deals constantly from promoters. We get screwed over constantly. Man, did you guys hear about Rebel FC? It's a Singapore-based mixed martial arts show. And I did some work for them, did some judging and referee work for them. And some friends of mine from the China Referee Union of Combat Sports, very good guys, some of the best referees I have ever met in my life, upstanding people in the combat sports community in China. These guys did some work for them. And some fighters that I know, fighters that I care about, fought for them, fought hard, bled in the cage for them. And these promoters decided they weren't going to pay anybody for their work, for their time, for their blood. They decided they were just going to jump ship and skip town without paying anybody. Fighters get screwed over constantly. And for some reason, a lot of us just take it. We just lie down and take it. To the credit of these fighters, they did not lie down and take it. So we get back to the hotel after the fight event. And one of the fighters, he sees me in the elevator. He's like, "Hey, dude, did you get paid yet?" And I said, "No, I haven't been paid yet. I mean, we just got back from the venue." He says, "You're not getting paid, man. None of us are. Come with me. Follow me." So I follow this guy down to the lobby. And the fighters have formed a circle around the promoter. And they are essentially holding him hostage in the lobby of this hotel because he tried to get away without paying the fighters their due. And everybody else. And I remember they'd hired a boy, like a teenage boy, to open and close the cage door. And they were going to pay him some piddly amount, like something like 100 RMB, which is, it's like 14, 15 US dollars. Which, for a teenage kid in China, that's pretty good money for opening and closing a door for a couple hours and getting to see some free fights. That's a good deal. But this kid had some inside information, and he left. He left because he knew he was not going to get paid that $15, that 100 RMB. And someone said to me, "Hey, you're sitting close to the door," because I was judging the event. I was sitting at the judges' table closest to the door. They said, "Hey, can you open and close the door?" I said, "What happened to the door kid?" I'm like, "Seriously, what happened to the door kid?" And then I find out he left because he heard he was not getting paid. And I'm like, "Well, that's kind of funny. That's kind of fishy." And then when I get back to the hotel, the writing was on the wall. None of us are getting paid. Anyway, these fighters did not lie down and take it. They held the promoter. It was actually the promoter's son who was at the event. They held him hostage in the lobby for several days until his daddy came and bailed him out. I had to leave town early. Although I had to fight for them to honor the contract to pay for my return flight home. Man, those guys sucked. And then, after this whole ordeal, man, they gave me the runaround so many times. I never got paid by them. Never. My friends at the Referee Union of Combat Sports never got paid. Only the fighters who stuck around and held that dude hostage, held the promoter hostage for 4 days, got paid because they fought for it. Fighters fight, man. not just in the ring. Life is a fight. So fighter friends, what are you going to do about it? Do we accept this? Now, I'm not saying Jake Paul needs to be put in his place or stay in his lane. No, man. More power to this kid, man. Go out there, make that money. Exploit the system. If you can exploit it, make that money. I'm talking to the fighters. Are you going to lie down and tell yourself, hey, I am going to consign myself to mediocrity, even though I am a great fighter, even though I'm a talented martial artist, mixed martial artist, boxer, wrestler, etc. But you can't do anything with that. You can't make anything out of yourself with that. You can't get rich unless what? Unless what? Unless you fight for it, man. Unless you fight for it. Who's watching you? Who is watching you on the internet? Generally, people who are sitting there with their phones, alone, at home, in the dark, scrolling through, trying to find something to give them some purpose and some meaning in their lives, to tickle and titillate their senses, to make them feel better for just a moment before they have to go back to work. Boring work tomorrow. Ugh, hate my job. Can't wait to go home and see what's on the internet. And when they're looking through their YouTube recommendations, how to finish takedowns. Skip. How to do arm bars. Skip. How to get out there and train. Skip. Fun! That's the one I want. Let's click on the fun video. There we go. And I understand that. When I was a teenager, I was way into moody, dramatic stuff. That's when I saw The Razor's Edge with Bill Murray, by the way. And it kind of resonated with me because I was a moody, dramatic teenager. And I see this moody, dramatic movie. I'm like, oh, this is my type of movie. I get it. I feel artsy-fartsy now. And as a middle-aged man, it's different. As a middle-aged man, I enjoy comedies. I enjoy laughing. There is so much drama, too much drama out there in the world. As it is, why not laugh? So if given the choice between a moody, serious drama and a comedy where I can just sit back and laugh, I'll take the latter every time. Because I have lived through the drama in real life, man. I have seen some things, guys. I've seen some things. So I drew a comparison between Jake Paul and some of boxing's greats, Ali, Tyson, and Floyd Mayweather. But let's draw a comparison now between a less respected character, Charlie Zelenoff. If you're not familiar with him, he was kind of an unhinged, mentally unstable guy who unwittingly participated in a prank video where a friend of his hired a Mexican day laborer who was waiting outside of a hardware store to get hired and said, hey, I'll pay you some money if you pretend that you are a Mexican boxing champion. And you get in the ring with a friend of mine, you spar a little bit with him, and as soon as he hits you, you go down. And they filmed it. It was supposed to be a prank video. Charlie Z didn't get the joke. He wasn't in on the joke. And so he hits this migrant worker. The dude falls down exactly as instructed so he can get his money. And Charlie Z thinks it's real. He's like, I just knocked out a Mexican national boxing champion. I'm the man. And he runs with it. He starts making himself this weird, I hesitate to call it a career, but he cuts out a niche for himself on the internet by making these videos where he essentially tricks people into putting on boxing gloves while he puts on a pair of loaded gloves with the foam cut out and starts essentially bare-knuckle hitting people with his wrists reinforced with the gloves. And while they're under the intention, we're going to do some just light, friendly sparring, and he tries to knock them out. And he records these videos, he puts them up on the internet, people get mad at him, And they're like, oh, you suck, you're the worst guy ever. And so he became infamous. If you don't know the difference between famous and infamous, famous is a lot of people know you for something good. Infamous is a lot of people know you for something bad. So Charlie Z became infamous. So what is the difference here between Jake Paul and Charlie Z? Jake Paul is famous, Charlie Z is infamous. Why? Jake Paul essentially baited people that he knew he could beat in a boxing match. Although, in all fairness, they did have fair warning. It was a boxing match. These are full contact fights. We're going to try to knock each other out. So there were no surprises in that regard. But he did bait people who were not as good at boxing as him to get in the ring with him so that he could beat them up and look good by comparison. Which essentially is what Charlie Z tried to do for himself. Why? Because in both instances, both men felt they were performing for the cameras, so they could boast about it online, so they could get that online internet cred as being the boxer, as being the champion, as being the hero, if you will. It feels good to be that guy, right? Feels good to be the guy with his hand raised at the end of the fight, right? So what's the difference? Both of these men are doing this to fuel their brand. Both of these individuals are doing this to fuel their brand. What's the difference? Fame on one side, infamy on the other. I suppose the only real difference is that one of them, Jake Paul, did his boxing matches in good faith, whereas Charlie Z did not. And that's important. That's important, man. Charlie Z, in another life, in another universe, if he was a different type of person, he could have been famous instead of infamous. If he had his head screwed on right, could have spun his character around, because he is a character. He is a larger-than-life character, and he could have spun that around into actual fame instead of infamy, if he played his cards right. How exactly? Who can say for sure, but it's definitely possible. Again, if a guy like Jake Paul, who is famous for I don't even know what, becomes famous for that, this is a world where you can dig down deep and find out what your talent is and show it to the world. And there's probably a group of nerds out there on the internet who want to see it. And that group is probably bigger than you think it is. And there's probably a way to make a living off of that. So fighters, pay attention. Pay attention to Jake Paul's antics here. How do you make that money for practicing? How do you make that money for practice? Man, there are many ways. I mean, check out this shirt. It's got a couple of kitty cats doing jujitsu on each other. It says Kimyaura. It's a play on words because this cat's doing a Kimura. It's a jujitsu move. It's an arm lock to break the shoulder. Kimura, Kimyaura, because cats say meow, right? They say meow. What does this have to do with anything? This is a shirt from my sponsor, xmarshall.com. Use my code Ramsey10 to get 10% off everything on the website. Why? Why am I bringing this up? Because they pay me to wear their merchandise. And when you buy using that code, it helps out this channel. I get paid for that. That's pretty awesome. That's a great exchange. And the fact that I can get out there and train, and these guys can outfit me with rash guards and fitness equipment and everything else that I need, man, that is awesome. That is fantastic. And I love it. And they make really good stuff. And I'm not just saying this because they are my sponsor. I've tried, man, you would be shocked to learn how many rash guards I own. You would be shocked to see my rash guard collection. It is vast. And some of my favorite rash guards of all just happen to be my sponsor. Why did I choose them as a sponsor as opposed to So many of the other sponsors I said no to. Why? Because it's a product that I actually like and I actually use. So xmarshall.com, I enjoy their stuff. Go check them out. Again, use my code Ramsey10 for 10% off everything. What am I doing right there? I'm giving you an example of how to hustle just a little bit. Okay? In my last live Q&A, a young guy, amateur fighter, asked me, how do I promote myself as a fighter? And I told him, first of all, worry about winning fights. Get out there, get some fights under your belt. Get the experience, get some skill, get some talent first. And that's your main priority, right? Because if you don't have that talent, you don't have that skill, you're going to have a very hard time promoting yourself. I mean, it's one thing to be a heel. A lot of people, they saw how Conor McGregor played the character, did the heel, played the bad guy, if you will. And that's great if you keep winning. If you consistently win, that's great. That works. And as soon as you lose, people are like, good, get rid of the bum. We didn't like him anyway. We wanted to see him lose. That's why you pay to see him lose. When the bad guy keeps winning. That works when you keep winning. And it backfires when you start losing. So you better have the talent to back it up. I'm not saying you have to be a face, but you do have to have skill. Now, Jake Paul is a bit of an anomaly here because he's getting out there and getting experience in the public eye while simultaneously being paid handsomely for it. Woo! Man, if you can find out how to do that, man, do that. A lot of local level MMA shows, boxing shows, other combat sports shows, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them, offer their fighters a deal. Hey, go out there, sell some tickets, get people to come, and we will give you a percentage of ticket sales. And if they don't, talk to the promoter and work out a deal with the promoter. Again, you've got to fight for every inch that you're given or it won't be given to you. And if they offer you, hey, here is the sum of money we are offering you in the contract, you are within your rights to ask for more. They're within their rights to refuse. But if you don't ask, you will never be given. Don't settle is what I'm saying. Don't settle as a fighter. All right, guys. I want to give a shout out to end this video. Before I end this video to Faraz Zahabi over in Canada. He made a video which you should go and watch at least part of. At least watch the first 5 minutes of this video. It's like 30 minutes long, but he repeats himself a number of times because I think it was a live stream and he just really wanted to get this message out. But watch at least the first 5 minutes of it. He has been repeatedly harassed by the police because of his gym, and this is a strange situation. I'm over here in China. Here's what happened in China last year. Right around the Chinese New Year 2020, it was a brand new year, and the COVID epidemic came out of Wuhan. Some people started traveling from there. It spread worldwide. A lot of countries over here in Asia, China, Korea, etc., locked down everything. China locked down everything, closed the borders, shut every business for 3.5 months. And then everything opened again, business as usual. We don't have to wear masks out in public except for a few exceptions if you're riding in a taxi, for example. If you're at a bank or a government building. But almost everywhere else, at the gyms are open. Gyms are fine. They're having jiu-jitsu tournaments again. They're having MMA fights again. They're doing boxing matches. All these sporting events are back on now. And it's been like that since, for a year, for over a year. A year and 2 weeks, China has been open and normal and back to normal again. And Korea, South Korea, many other Asian nations as well, in the same boat. Life is back to normal again, except for the fact that the borders are closed because the rest of the world did not respond to this situation accordingly. In fact, it just got worse and worse. And I keep getting messages from everybody telling me, hey, Ramsey, I can't train because I'm still under lockdown. I'm still under quarantine. And Faraz Zahabi brought up a very important message. He said, we keep saying we're under quarantine, and we are not. If we were ever under quarantine, they would have shut down everything. They would have shut down the metros. They would have shut down shopping malls. They would have shut down everything, which they did not. They took half measures, and half measures don't work. And so instead, everybody's paying lip service, and they're saying, hey, the people downstairs of the TriStar gym are calling the police 17 times in what, like a 2-week period, something like that? 17 times. The folks downstairs are reporting him to the police for illegal, suspicious activities because, well, for no good reason. No laws are being broken. And this isn't just happening to Faraz. This has happened to a lot of friends of mine. A lot of friends of mine in the United States. It's the first time I've heard of it happening in Canada. I doubt it's the only time. But man, Faraz was very vocal about it. Please go show him some support. If you don't already subscribe to Faraz Zahabi, please do. It is one of the best channels on the sport of mixed martial arts that you will find on the internet. It just is. It may not be one of the more popular ones. I mean, it's not an unpopular channel. He has a few 100,000 subscribers. That's not nothing. But man, compared to those extremely popular YouTubers who've never been in a fight, many of which, in my estimation, don't know what the heck they're doing, Faraz is one of the guys that you should be watching if you have a genuine interest in getting out there and training and becoming better at the sport of mixed martial arts, jiu-jitsu, or really any other combat sport. And he's being harassed, people taking advantage of these weird new laws. People are always asking me, hey, Ramsey, why do you live in China? Why do you live in communist China? And I'll tell you what, it's largely because communist China right now is way less communist than the West has become. It is a joke what has happened in the West. When this pandemic first came out here in China, people kept asking me, hey, Ramsey, what's going on with the pandemic over there? Aren't you scared? Don't you want to leave? And I made a couple videos about that, and guess what happened? Google blocked them because, I don't know, I guess they were afraid of false information coming out about the pandemic. And swept under the rug as well were first-hand accounts of what was happening here in China, which Google did not want you to hear. People are always saying, aren't you afraid of the CCP censoring you? No, the CCP doesn't censor me. Google does. And that might get me censored by Google if my channel disappears tomorrow. That's why, guys. That's why. It has nothing to do with the Chinese government, man. Google is a government in and of itself, if you will. These internet entities, people who control the internet, it's the new media. Back in the day, it was TV and television, and today it is the internet, which changes public perception of everything. Your opinions, the majority of your popular opinions, even many of the ideals that you hold to and cling to in your heart, of hearts, and think are original ideas, more likely than not, are media brainwashing that is being instilled in you through the logical fallacy known as the mere exposure effect, meaning you heard it enough times and so you believed it was true. So man, things are crazy over there in the West. Major cities in America and in Canada, in these nations which were held up as a beacon of freedom to the rest of the world, of liberty and independence to the rest of the world. Major cities in these countries are under, what is the word I'm looking for? Where they tell you have to be indoors by a certain time. Curfew. They've got curfews, like 8:30 curfews in major cities. Otherwise you get fines or jail time or a criminal record for being out in public. What? That's not the America I left. China is not like that, man. Communist China is not that bad, not even remotely that bad. Man, and you might be saying, well, wasn't it bad during the Cultural Revolution? Sure, yeah, of course. It's not the Cultural Revolution right now. It's 2021, guys. It's a different world. It's a different time. And communist China in the modern world, from what I'm hearing from your stories out in the West, in America, in Canada, in these Western countries that are supposed to be the beacon of freedom and civilization and goodness and apple pie to the rest of the world, the stories I'm hearing remind me so much of these stories of the Red Guard during the Cultural Revolution and all the crazy things that happened here when people relinquished their freedom, if you will. What happened, America? I didn't mean for this to turn into a political rant, but I'm gonna go with it. I don't script these things. I don't censor these things. I've been accused of censoring my speech and filtering my speech many times. I never, ever do. Ever. I made myself some very simple rules 15 years ago when I started this YouTube channel, because my objective was to communicate, to become a better communicator. It just so happens that the thing I talk about and communicate about the most is martial arts, because that's my job. I'm a coach. I'm a mixed martial arts coach. I'm a combat sports coach. So that's what you hear me communicate with you about the most. But you'll notice the channel is called Ramsey Dewey, not Ramsey Dewey only ever communicates with you about mixed martial arts and nothing else forever and ever. Amen. No. What happened to America? What happened to Canada? I don't know, but it's not good. So why am I over here in China? I don't feel the inclination to go back to that at this moment. No, thank you. I don't want a curfew. I don't want to be beholden to militaristic police who have the right to infringe upon your rights. And some of you might be saying, well, don't you live in a communist dictatorship? Which one of us actually lives in the communist dictatorship right now? Ask yourself that question very seriously. Which one of us is actually under the crushing heel of an iron boot of an authoritarian state right now? Didn't mean this to sound like a cry from a prophet of doom or anything, but man, the writing is on the wall. The kid who opens and closes the cage door skipped town because he's not getting paid. And he realized it before anybody else did. So, to bring this full circle, fighters fight. And if you want to get what's yours, you're going to have to fight for it, friends. Thank you for watching. Now get out there and train.